Good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, depending on when you are watching and listening to this. This is the 4Ps. Also, I'd like to wish you all a happy cold and flu season, my friends. We went from 90 degrees and sunny to fall and germs everywhere very quickly. I know this because I am a victim of it. Now, I know I've talked about this before, which is why it doesn't really qualify as a P specifically, which we reserve for original thoughts, but please get your flu shots. Now, people will say they aren't getting it because it's not a perfect match, but yes, that's true. But wouldn't you want to be 65 or 70% protected as opposed to 0%? So for my kids' sake, please get your flu shot. Another reason you know fall is here is because it is still dark early and into the morning, and it gets dark early in the afternoon. You can barely see me. You know, I have an idea. Brilliant! As I said on Twitter last week, my biggest takeaway from last week's big Aana Marketing Masters Conference, which brought together over 3,000 of the top industry leaders, was a cold. Can you hear it in my voice? It's not how I normally sound. You know, from colleagues to new friends to the woman I sat next to on the flight home, it seems like everybody was battling some kind of early fall virus. Well, congratulations, everyone. You got me. It had been almost 8 months since my last illness of any kind, not counting my back injury. But one trick that I've always resorted to as soon as I feel symptoms come on, I pump myself full of zinc and vitamin C. Now, my problem is that almost every cold evolves into a bad sinus infection, either because I forget to take the zinc tablets or because I started it too late. And after 24 hours of the first symptoms, it's not effective anymore. It doesn't work. So I pump myself as soon as I felt the symptoms. I'm about 48 hours in, and I'm kind of on the cusp of seeing whether or not this is going to devolve. Now, I remain optimistic, yes, optimistic, that we'll keep these symptoms in check. Optimism! The Supreme Court is back in session as of Monday, and it's a session that falls before another big, likely close election, and this year scares me as much as, if not more, than any other year, both from a Supreme Court session and the election. Now, it's the first full term with Creepy Kavanaugh and a conservative majority. And they've selected some really pivotal cases that could change the track of our history yet again, including a case that could overturn a large chunk of Roe v. Wade, a case that deals with how sexual assault in the military is handled and or potentially just swept under the rug. Now, the court it's really become the most stable, important branch of our government as far as protecting the Constitution. But even our Constitution is showing signs of aging. You know, there's a really great thread on Twitter this week asking about what moment or event symbolizes the dumbification of our country. And a lot of people are saying Nixon or the internet or when Reagan was elected or the pet rock or Kid Rock or Fox News. For me, you might think social media, but it was decided for me when slavery and gun ownership were permissible in our Constitution. Now, there's a scene in the great 1994 film With Honors when a Harvard law student, played by Brendan Fraser, brings a homeless man that he befriended, Joe Pesci, to the classroom. And the professor asks the students why the Constitution is so great. And only Joe Pesci's character gets it right. And the answer, he says, is because of the amendment process and the ability to adapt and change the Constitution. And it has. We overturned slavery. We granted electoral equality for women. But other meaningful, lasting change at this point in our history now seems beyond possible, whether it's changing the gun laws. Our nation is so divided down the middle. In fact, I don't see another real constitutional amendment being passed in our lifetime. And it's only getting worse. How's that for optimism? I am now the only person at my entire company with a PC. That's right. We are now like 99% max. And I'm beginning to feel like the old guy who's afraid to try new things. I've had a PC for as long as I've been using computers, and I'm pretty adept at all the software, the programs. I know how to navigate. And for me, change will just slow me down. I'm currently using a great Lenovo PC that also doubles as a tablet. But is my commitment to PCs and the Microsoft suite going to be my downfall? I've been talking about this story a little bit on social media lately, so I figured I would just get it all out here now as an official P. So a few weeks ago, a client asked us to reach out to Twitter about reclaiming a long defunct handle for one of their brands that somebody else was using and squatting on. Now, whoever had it hadn't tweeted in years, so we began the process of outreach. And it had been a while since I was part of this process and in the weeds a bit to reclaim it. But it reminded me of another time that I did this. And I can tell you back then it was very different. That time, in March of 2010, within 24 hours of learning that my team at 360i would be taking on the digital and social media duties for a number of craft foods brands, I sent a direct message to the, at the time, at Oreo feed owner for my own personal feed. Now, I wasn't expecting a response. You see, at Oreo was another long inactive feed, even back in 2010, that was being managed or maintained or ignored, actually, by a Japanese man or woman in honor of or about or dedicated to his or her cat named Oreo, which we've learned is a very popular pet name. Now, the feed only had 5 or 6 posts, and it had been dormant for over like 2 years. And the posts were all in Japanese. And at the time, very few craft brands had a Twitter feed at all, only Facebook, really. But before the days of paid media, our launch strategy for many of those brands, just starting from scratch, was purely creative and content-driven. And many questioned why they even needed to be on Twitter. But the Oreo brand was one that did have a feed, a totally different feed. And it was created specifically for, if you remember this, the Twist, Lick, and Dunk campaign. And my rule at the time, and it still holds, is don't create communities for campaigns. Create campaigns for communities, right? You all remember this, anybody who worked at 360i. So while that original brand feed was called at the Oreo Cookie, the content was primarily focused on their Oreo Racing League, a, let's admit it, terrible concept that pitted Shaquille O'Neal and Eli Manning as professional Oreo licking race team captains. And in that original pitch to the craft team, I pledged to get them the @Oreo handle on day 1 of hiring us. And I was a man of my word. And back then, Twitter was a small team. There was no agency, no brand teams, no sales teams. It was really just kind of business development and product teams. Unfortunately, I knew a few of those people out in San Francisco, and within hours of filing a ticket, because you could still do that back then, and I'm pretty sure Twitter support does not do that now, I was on the phone with one of their lead product developers in San Francisco. And because the original owner of @Oreo had not tweeted in like 6 months, 2 years, I don't even remember, I could verify that I was acting on behalf of Kraft Foods. So they just swapped the old, longer, terrible handle over to @Oreo, and we had it forever. And it happened so quickly that we didn't even have the opportunity to create a messaging plan or a relaunch strategy. It was just something that existing followers of the Oreo cookie may or may not have even noticed over time. Fortunately, they did. But now, nearly a decade later, I sometimes find myself lying awake in the middle of the night thinking about that cat in Japan. Is he or she even still alive? I don't know. But the original Oreo on Twitter, because the cookie is obviously much older, 110 years, did we deprive that cat of being able to tell her story or capture moments in his or her life? What kind of life did she go on to lead? Did her owner ever return to Twitter to log on and find out that his or her feed had been taken away without notice? Was the cat deprived of Vine fame and fortune because of something that I did? But then I remembered, she's just a cat. And while I'm highly allergic to cats, I do acknowledge that her or his ultimate sacrifice triggered a chain of events that changed digital marketing and social media forever. Because had I never asked, we'd all still be in the dark.